Hey there, what's going on? I'm Chris with the academyofworship.org YouTube channel, and you are tuning in to yet another podcast in yet another location. So today we have this topic right here, if I can point right. And I admit it's a little clickbaity, so, bear with me. But if you're watching, then you can see it. If not, the written right next to me here is too old, and I want to delve into something it's been on my mind, I guess, and I've never really been able to codify, I guess, exactly what's bothering me, or where this was going, I guess, for quite a while, and it recently came up more in some things that I've heard and experienced with other worship leaders or people who kind of do similar things in worship ministry. And it usually comes from folks that are older. It's not something that comes from the youth of the church or the body of believers. And it's not even something that's necessarily spoken aloud or thought about out loud, and that's really is and I admit I'm oversimplifying it, but the question is there a cutoff age, or is there a quote too old age for those of us in the music ministry? I think generally speaking in the church, we don't necessarily look at pastors and folks like that are older. And what do I mean by older? Let's, I guess, clarify older. I would say anyone over 30, 35, somewhere in that age. And I admit again that range can differ greatly. So, but anyone above that age, which I am a member of a bracket above that age, I admit. I mean, I know I look 23 with all the gray in my beard, but no, I am a member of the age group above 35. I think when we start talking about what makes up the body, or more specifically the ministries in the Western church, we don't necessarily talk about kind of this unspoken thing that is, we want youth. We want to see youth. And so when someone starts exhibiting gray in the beard and things like that, we start wondering if there's this cutoff, or if we want new young blood. We have all these buzzwords that we like to use, and we don't say outright what it is. Hey, you look kind of old, we need some youth. I don't think we call it what it is. But as I alluded to earlier, what I'm seeing amongst those of us that are above 35, and kind of just what I hear from inside the church, I hear kind of talk in that regard, like, we need some younger guy, or we need some younger people, or we need to put some youth or some new blood, or all these buzzwords we have. But it got me thinking about how it's that kind of old adage, you can't teach a new dog new tricks. And I think that we're running into that with folks that are, again, I'm arbitrarily saying above 35, but you get the idea, that there's this kind of youth culture in the worship ministry, or worship music ministries, or however you want to classify it, that they can't keep up with, or at least perceptually that's what's being understood, that we can't, I'll say we, because I'm in that category, that we can't keep up with it, and we're not hip and cool, and we don't have the look, or whatever. And some try. I think some people who are above that definitely try to kind of fit in and stuff, and sometimes it's genuine, but more often than not it's skinny jeans on people that shouldn't wear skinny jeans, and beanies on people that shouldn't have beanies on. I don't know, maybe I'm generalizing, but it got me thinking and wanted to talk about this, because I think it's a concern that we're not addressing, that we inside the ministry don't, that there's kind of this age out, that people age out of things. And that's not to say that people don't move on to more or different things, or that other things in their life don't become maybe a priority over it, and or get called out of the music ministry or whatever. There's other factors for sure. But, I've read comments and specifically addressed to me too in this channel that, it's rough to transition from one mindset into another. That sometimes in said transitions, like a church that's going through kind of a revitalization, or maybe they want to kind of change images or styles of music. That's a pretty common one in a church, to be fairly traditional. When I say traditional, I mean hymns and maybe a choir and this very traditional kind of thing, organ. And then, they'll get a new pastor, or maybe a new worship leader, or something changes in the church that there's this relatively dramatic change in the culture, in the musical culture, and the DNA of the church. I'm not sure how you want to classify it, but it can be hard and frustrating for those above a certain age or in a certain age bracket. That, and I'm not talking about being set in our ways, because I think that all of us have a tendency to be set in a way, or to get used to something and then just not want to change. I'm talking about, maybe there's certain things that a younger, less mature Christian brings to the table that is good and bad. For instance, there's a lot of new energy, there's a lot of hope, and a lot of positivity, and things that are great to have on any team, for sure. But unfortunately, the discernment isn't quite there with most. I won't say all. There's definitely exceptions to any of these things I'm saying, but generally with someone who's younger and just by nature of them being younger have been saved less time, have probably taken less time in the Word, and I mean there's just all kinds of factors in place, right? Someone who's young is young, and that's not a dig on anyone who's young. It's just fact. And so it's harder for those that maybe have been doing it for a while, and their priorities, the older folks' priorities, are theology, making sure that the people of God are being shepherded right, that we're leading people in the Lord right, that we're not we're not letting the culture dictate the church, we're letting the church dictate the culture. All the things that I think as you mature as a Christian become apparent is important. But like I was saying, the youth, when they come in, they bring this exuberance and passion and all these things that are fantastic, and even maybe some musical styles that come with it, and we'll get into that in a second. But we get this great stuff, but along with it kind of I don't want to say disregard. I think that would be unfair to those that are younger in the faith. There's a carefreeness that doesn't necessarily cover all the bases that we need. And so while you get this kind of overhaul as far as youthful look, youthful sound, youthful everything, you start missing out, I think, or can start missing out on the things that are very important in worship music. Stuff, I harp on, or at least talk about all the time on the channel, and what I think is important. And so one of the things that I keep in mind, and I hope is clear in these podcasts and or the videos that we put out on the channel, is that there needs to be a halfway point that we meet as the youth come into the culture, and the older folks like me try to adopt that into what we're doing, and take advantage of the good things, and then prayerfully and scripturally guide those that are new to things. But I am seeing a shift. What's my point? I'm seeing not a shift, but I do see a concern with those of us that have been doing it for a while, with a lot of the folks coming into this, that there's a disregard for the older folks. And I think without saying it, we're aging out people. whether it's on purpose or not. I think some of it, unfortunately, is on purpose. But I think some of it is just either us old folks, and I hate saying that because I don't feel old, but hey, we don't look the part, and I think that we kind of get edged out because everyone's got these great ideas. They want to start playing music that's from these youthful, cool churches and cultures, and the red flags or alarm bells or things that we want to be discerning about are disregarded because it's cool and youthful and hip and great. So it's concerning to me. I don't have some big fix to a lot of this. I'm not talking on this podcast about anything that I have some great solution to, other than we need to consider this issue in the church as something that actually is happening and not something that will just go away on its own. I'm sure that the church has struggled with this since the church started. You always have new believers. You always have youth in the church. That's not new. But I think in our culture today, with social media and all the things that come with that kind of, I know I'm lumping this into this, but the 24-hour news cycle, that kind of rush needs to be now and hip and cool and modern, all those things that I feel old just saying like that. I think that we disregard what has come before and what we can do to incorporate that. So one thing we need to do, like I was saying, is talk about it. When we have a leader who has been doing things for a while and has a good idea of the pulse of the church, and I'm talking about your local church, I'm not talking about the church, capital C. I'm talking about your local congregation. And you've got a church that has been established for many years, and maybe they're struggling with numbers, and they're trying to reach more people in the community, or however you want to look at it, and they're changing things up by maybe doing the things I said at the intro of this video of musical styles or a more youthful appearance, or maybe changing the song selection, whatever. It needs to be considered that this person who, again, as long as this person is biblically sound, actually is caring about what the church is doing, and theologically is something they're steeped into kind of the theological part of what we do. That person, not someone who maybe needs to be replaced for other reasons. I'm just talking about those of us that we've been around, we've seen it, and we're not opposed to new styles. Anyone who knows me knows that I'll jump on anything. I was happy to use technology and things like that in a church service, and loops and Ableton and the whole thing. And I in fact, I love it. I'm a tech guy by trade. So I'm not coming down on those things, but I think that to run into that arena without any consideration for why we're running into that arena is a problem in our church, and that is a capital C, the church. So I guess really it's more of an exhortation or encouragement to those of you out there that may be older, above that 35 mark. And again, that's a sliding thing. It could be whatever you consider to be, quote, old, or whatever your church considers that. I don't know. Maybe you're not struggling with this. Maybe this is something that hasn't even touched your church culture. But I do know that it is touching church cultures. I've been in a church. In fact, the one we recently left on good terms, by the way. It was a peaceful parting and all hugs all around. It was good. But we went through a bit of that. We were a little ahead of the curve in that I was already kind of employing a lot of the, again, I just feel old saying this, but quote, youthful stuff, as far as loops and Ableton and modern songs and things like that. But the image of the church was kind of changing to a more, again, quote, youthful imagery, a more modern aesthetic, and more concerned to kind of given to again, the aesthetics. So we were ahead though on as far as sound. The sound was more modern and things. So But I've seen it. I mean, it comes to everywhere. I know that there's probably not a church that's immune to it, even if it hasn't hit your church yet. I'm sure there are people or rumblings in your community that, if you're in a more traditional church, that, it may be, I don't go there because, it's boring, or they sing old people songs, or whatever. There's always that push-pull of the culture around us, especially in the church. And so this is an exhortation to those of you that are older to embrace what's appropriate. Don't poo-poo something that is new simply because it's new. And as God raises up leaders in your community, your church community specifically, and it's obvious that they're kind of coming into this, don't be afraid of what they bring, or being replaced for that matter, because you may be getting worked out of your current role as someone who's older, not because you're older, but because God wills it, and it is that person's time, or whatever. That could be what you're called to do. It could just be that the other side of the coin is that the church wants to change for the sake of change, and there's no real substance to why they want to do it. And that is where you can bring your discernment into it. You can speak truth in love. You can make sure that your voice is heard as far as, raising biblical concerns, that you want the church to be theologically sound, or at least the music ministry part of it. You want to sing songs that are biblically glorifying to God, and not just, God is my boyfriend type stuff that's relatively light on theology, and or maybe less of that. I don't know. Maybe that's a concern. Maybe it's not. But also just that you are concerned for the congregation, not because you're afraid that they're being influenced incorrectly, but because your job and the pastor's job and everything is to lead a flock of people and to make sure that they are being taught in the Lord correctly. Or that your concern is for the new worship leader, that person, if they are young, then they're new in the faith, whether they've been a Christian for, 2 years or 10 years, that's still relatively new to the faith. I mean, maybe 10's on the fine side of things, but you get my point. My point is that those of us that have been here a while shouldn't be afraid of growth. And to those of you that maybe are on the other side, no, it's not sides. Those of you that are on the youthful side, so under the 35, or under 30 or whatever, be open to what the Lord has put before you as far as your elders. And again, I feel old just saying that, but those that have come before you have, you may not realize, maybe they've been swinging that hammer or swinging that machete through the forest quite a bit, and have cleared a big path for you that you don't realize how easily you're walking into something because of this person getting in the way of darts, or whatever has come before. And that even if you have more to go, or there's a lot of building to do, or God has put in front of you more obstacles, something did come before. And I think it's important for the youth folks to understand that, and to step into that with some humility, along with their expectation and exuberance and all the things that comes with it. And I think that if the two types of people, older and younger, can come at that area in our church with an understanding of that, I'm pretty sure that the communication will open up pretty significantly, and a lot of great work can go toward building God's kingdom and not tear people down. Because I think it's really easy as an older person to get discouraged when we feel like we're being aged out, or that we're not relevant. Not that relevance is important, because the only relevant thing in the church is the gospel and what Christ has done for us and who he is. But you know what I mean, that we're kind of thrown away. And on the other side of things, I know it's frustrating for someone coming into something to have these curmudgeon-y old people kind of thumbs downing everything they're doing or not being excited about something different or new. And I think if we can clear those things out of the way, then there's nothing but positive growth for a church to do. So there's work to be done on both sides. And I think that, of course, this goes beyond just the music ministry. Obviously, any type of church activity would benefit from this idea. The congregation itself would benefit from this. But do these things openly. And of course, we're called to love each other, guys. And so how can we love each other without talking, or at least trying to understand? And most importantly, just be open and honest. If you're frustrated, or if your church is frustrated, or if your pastor's frustrated, or even, if you're the person coming into something and frustrated with whatever, say so, but do it in love, and don't be afraid to have these conversations. Things change. It's not a bad thing. It's just how we change them. That's the important part, and why we're changing them. So, I don't know. That was my mind dump on this podcast. I know that we cover a broad range of things here, and in episodes past or videos past or whatever, I've talked about being on the more, quote, theological side of things. And I know that I'm not opening a Bible here all the time, or much at all, because I want this to be an honest part of the Academy of Worship. I like having the two things, that there's the training, and then there's kind of just the thoughts, and a little bit different format, and a little bit more loose way of doing things. And I hope that's okay with everybody out there. So I'd love to hear from you guys. If you want to leave a comment, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, please do. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this whole thing. Or maybe I am way off the mark, you completely disagree with me. Well, do it in love. Disagree in the comments below. That's fine. Or maybe I missed something. That'd be awesome too. If you're listening to this as an audio podcast, there's things in place that you can comment or like whatever the audio on whatever you're using. But you can always send an email to academyofworship@gmail.com and give me your thoughts if you have ideas, or maybe you just want to chat and talk to a brother. I'm always here and open to whatever. I can't promise I'll get back to you super fast all the time, but that's where I am. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this opens dialogue for you, or at least gives you something to think about. I know it's been on my mind, and it's something that I think is important and has been important in the church for a very long time, and will remain important for a very long time. So anyway, thanks guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.